You are here to find out about monitoring your work from anywhere, remote workers in your Citrix environments. And we're going to find out how Liquidware can help you do that, because I know if you guys are like us, we're all spread out all over the place. So we definitely need help tracking everybody down. We are recording today's session, and you're going to get a link to that recording tomorrow. It's going to come to you in an email from GoToWebinar, so be on the lookout for that. And I think we're also going to share the slide deck out with that as well. It has a lot of links in it for you, so definitely be on the lookout for that. Type your questions as you have them throughout the presentation. We're going to take as many as we can today, so type those in, don't forget them. And at the end, I have a short survey for you. It's anonymous and for CUGC use only. All right, so with us today, we have Johnny Ma. He is a sales engineer and a Citrix technology advocate. He is heavily involved with our Colorado CUGC, in fact, was a leader for a while. So welcome to the webinar, Johnny.
Thank you.
And also, I'm sorry.
Great to be here. You're right.
So we have with us Bart Jacobs. He is a CTP, and he's going to keep an eye on all of your questions. I know your guys are going to have some good ones, so keep him busy. All right, so I'm going to disappear, and Bart and Johnny are going to take it away, and I will see you back in a little bit. I'm going to send you the screen right now, Johnny.
Sure, thank you. All right, everybody can see the screen, right?
Not quite yet.
It says I'm sharing.
Can you see it, Bart? Oh, there it goes. Now I see it.
All right. Cool. So yeah, welcome to our presentation on how to monitor work from anywhere remote workers in Citrix environments. As Stephanie introduced me, my name is Johnny Ma. I'm a sales engineer / pre-sales solutions architect with Liquidware.
Yeah, we can't see anything. It's a blank screen at the moment.
Can't see anything. Wow, okay. When I go into presenter mode, you can't see anything. That's interesting.
Yeah.
It says I'm showing the screen. Okay.
Now it's showing. And
we see it now, but it's in the other mode.
How about now?
Yeah, I can see it. I do see all your slides on. No, there you go. That's it.
There we go. Okay. So sorry, here we go. We'll start again. My name is Johnny Ma. I'm a sales engineer with Liquidware. Here is my contact information, my Twitter, my personal blog. I was awarded a CTA back in 2020 and renewed for 2021 earlier this year. And yeah, as Stephanie said, I formerly was the CUGC leader in Colorado. So let's start off with what if. What if there was a monitoring solution that can be deployed anywhere and is able to monitor everything Windows, regardless of where those instances of Windows are running? Well, we enter in with Stratusphere UX. Stratusphere UX is our complete monitoring solution that provides full 360-degree deep dive view of the user's experience. If you're not familiar with it, it is appliance-centric. It can run on all the major hypervisors, so your Citrix hypervisor, Nutanix AHV, VMware vSphere, Microsoft Hyper-V. And it can also, in addition to that, run in all major public cloud environments. All of the data is yours. Everything is encrypted and compressed. Stratusphere's diagnostics is the same no matter what industry you are in. The only difference is the applications and the criticality. As a subject matter expert, I work with a lot of accounts to implement, train, and help interpret the Stratusphere UX data. Our clients run on physical, virtual, and cloud-based user workloads. So breaking down the top 6 problems we identify with Stratusphere. First one is long user login. So how many times in Citrix environments do we have folks that say it took a long time to log in? And what exactly have we, or are we able to do to actually prove what took so long to log in on? This is a very complex issue with many, many factors. So we can have things like domain controller response time. What DC is the user hitting, and how long it actually took them to discover that DC. Are the domain controllers overloaded? Is sites and services misconfigured? Or is the domain controller misconfigured and you need an extra CPU or a couple more gigs of RAM, right? So if we switch over to a demo of this, we can actually see that. So coming into our Stratusphere appliance, I can actually come up to the login tab, and I can actually see, when I pull up the data, the username, the domain controller they hit, how long it took them to discover the domain controller, how long the domain controller operations took, how long authentication took, and also any abnormal events that occurred on that particular DC at that time. So if you're having operations for discovery that take a long time, you could have a misconfiguration in sites and services, and this gives us the ammunition to go talk to our friends that run the domain controllers and those types of things, right? As opposed to just arbitrarily guessing and trying to prove that without any actual data to back it.
Yeah, Tony, are you sharing something? Because
I am sharing a screen. Is it not sharing my entire screen?
It is in the presentation still.
Sorry, there we go. How about now? Having presentation. So, okay, sorry, let's come back to this. So if we look at our Stratusphere UX appliance, in our appliance, if we come into the logon section, we can actually break it down and show what domain controller the user was hitting, the username. We can see how long it took them to discover the domain controller, how long the domain controller operations took, authentication took, and you have the ability from here, if domain controller discovery took a very long time, to actually have the data backing to actually tell somebody that we're having something misconfigured in sites and services because it took a long time to find a domain controller, or the domain controller is overloaded and it took domain controller operations a very long time to actually process the authentication and the group policy processing. Let me pop through this slide again. The top number 5 problem that we identified with Stratusphere UX is the last machine boot time, right? We can actually come in here and we can see, the machine boot time, not the quick boot time, this is actually a full boot time. The issues we have with machines that have not been rebooted in a relatively short period of time is OS fragmentation, memory leaks, and GDI object leaks, which is graphics device interface object leaks. And then also in conjunction with that, not only is it a performance issue and causes performance issues for users, it actually has security compliance issues, right? It's fantastic that you show me an uptime of 30 days or 90 days or 180 days the machine's been online, but that means that's also 30 days, 90 days, or 180 days where the machine has not patched or installed any updates, right? This just leads to poor performance, it leads to calls to the help desk, and it leads to security issues. I just worked with a customer the other day that had thousands of machines deployed as persistent machines inside of AWS. A third of those machines have not been rebooted in over a month, and once they implemented that reboot policy, it reduced the help desk call count drastically. Other examples of memory leaks are there was a situation where there was a small printer icon in the sys tray, or the notification area that generated hundreds of GDI objects per day. So that's a small memory leak issue they had that's compounded over time and made things bad for the user. So if we come back over to examine our GDIs, you can come into the machine section here, and you can actually just change this time frame to whatever time frame you would like to in any one of our tabs. But from here, we can just sort by GDI objects column, and we can see the top consumers over our time frame and how many GDI objects they have actually produced. And on top of that, give it a second for it to load. And we see these folks with a bunch of GDI objects that have been produced over this period of time. And then if we look at our section for inventory, we actually see the last boot time. So there are machines in our demo environment that have not rebooted in the last month or two as well, as with every environment, but yeah. Sorry. There we go. So in addition to number 5, we actually have a problem called, or problem 5A that we find as well. It's memory usage and paging. So we actually can see the amount of memory used in a percentage, and we can see the amount of page file that is used as well in conjunction with that. And every single one of our tabs has a section where we can pop out an application inspector to actually dive in and see what exactly is consuming that memory. But the issues we have here is undersizing. Now that folks are consistently using our virtual desktops for everything, as opposed to when they're in the office and they may have been using it for certain tasks and those things like that. Our 4 gigs of allocated RAM may not be enough, and you might need 6 gigs or 8 gigs. Any excessive paging does cause extra IO on the disk, and actually it does require a certain percentage of CPU cycles to move the data to page file, right? And tying back to the previous point of number 5, application memory leaks or machines have not recently been rebooted, which cause the issue of high memory utilization and also a lot of page file use. All right, so coming back over to our machine section, we can come in here and we can just drill down and look to see who are the offenders and who are the ones that use our page file and our high memory utilization that we can fix. Give it a second for the data to load. So you can see folks in here that are running like 96% of the memory or 80% of the memory or 83% of the memory. So if I click on any one of these, I actually have I can pop out an application inspector, and from that application inspector, see what exactly is causing that memory utilization. You have some services like Windows Defender and all these things that kind of add up to that point of memory utilization, right? Okay, moving on to the next point. Point number 4 is GPU, right? We live in a highly intense graphic world on physical, virtual, and cloud-based machines, and we need to be able to render that data in pictures. Applications that can use video cards will use it if detected. This is not limited to heavy 3D graphics rendering, right? Any machine that has been purchased in the last 10 plus years has had some sort of GPU in it, regardless if the GPU is on die or discrete, right? Coming in here, as we talked about before, we can actually see the GDI objects on a machine basis and determine if we need to, reformulate our strategy in the future on new hardware acquisition or anything like that to include things like GPUs or cloud instances to have GPUs, right? Anything over 100 GDI objects per day could actually use a GPU. Any user, any machine that's actually generated that much, right? If there is a lack of a GPU, the CPU is actually required to emulate some of those GPU calls. So coming back in here, we sort by our GDI objects as we did earlier. We can see folks that are using and producing a lot of GDI objects on their machine. And for those that missed it, GDI is graphics device interface. It's a Microsoft thing that actually shows you how many items we're actually creating pictures or those types of text that are kind of image based. All right, moving up to the next one. Type 3 problem that is identified with Stratusphere UX. This can be called 2 things. Some folks call it the first mile of productivity. Some people call it the last mile of productivity. But in essence, what it is your network connectivity from your home out to where you need to get to, right? So from within Stratusphere, we can actually analyze and see the your Wi-Fi strength, how far you are away from an access point, and those types of things. Not only that, we can see what types of protocols you're using. We can see the band you're using. Is it the 5 gig band or is it 2.4 gig band, right? With work from anywhere or any of those types of things, right? We constantly have children that are in Zoom meetings for remote learning, or they're playing Xbox or watching YouTube, Netflix, Hulu, and those types of things. This can clearly point out that, you know, we might need to talk to our ISP to get increased bandwidth for our home networking if you have a lot of those other types of things going in there. Or you need to deploy another Wi-Fi node out in a distinct location so that you're closer to wireless when you're accessing, when you connect to these virtual desktops. Otherwise, it could point out that we have an overloaded router as well. So coming into here, when we look at our machines section, we can actually come into our basis. Our basis is how we add other data that may not be present by default in any of these columns. So we can come out here, we can add our SSID name, our Wi-Fi protocol, and our Wi-Fi band. And when I hit go, I will see everyone's SSID name. I will see if they're on the 5 gig band or the 2.4 gig band, and I will see if they're using 802.11, A, B, G, N, those types of guys. So hopefully we're not using 802.11a, but I do randomly see this guy in here a lot with this 802.11a in there. They're also on the 5 gig band. 802.11a and B and those types of the older ones are bandwidth capped, and there's all kinds of fun, interesting things that happen in their worlds. But that just shows me the SSID name, the protocol, and the band they're on. If I want to do a deep inspection to see how far they are away from the access point, I can actually load up the Wi-Fi details with the network here on this section for the table. And this will actually enumerate the strength of the Wi-Fi signal and also how far they are away from their access point. So if someone built a home office in their mother-in-law's suite in their backyard, right? Then they didn't necessarily put a Wi-Fi access point back there, and then they're reporting issues. It's a way for us to come in here and see, you know, how far are you away? What is your strength? And point when they come in and report those issues that they're having performance problems, we can say, you know, we found that you're XYZ away from your Wi-Fi when you connected to the virtual desktop and you ended up reporting issues, and you may want to put another Wi-Fi node out in those locations.
Yeah, talking about Wi-Fi, there's some questions popping up on
Sure.
actually how the Wi-Fi signal metrics are measured. Are you using some kind of agent? How about work from home machines?
Yes. So there is a deployment architecture for Stratusphere that allows for the hub appliance to be deployed in your data center, and then you deploy a collector appliance somewhere in your DMZ. Those two appliances communicate with each other, and then since that collector appliance is in your DMZ and you have certificates and public DNS and those types of things in your environment, the agent is actually deployed onto laptops. It's pre-configured on a bunch of thin clients, and those things call over the internet over HTTPS to your collector appliance in your DMZ, and you report that data, that metric like that.
Perfect. 2 questions answered in one go.
Okay. Did you say there was more questions? Sorry.
Yeah, you already answered 2 in a row. What about personal devices? A follow-up question. I guess it will be that the agent goes to can be installed on a personal device. Doesn't really matter.
It can be, as long as you can. There's a mechanism to get it there. If you want to provide that agent folks on like a flash drive or through some sort of file sync and sharing solution, that's fine. It'll call over to that, perfectly fine.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. All right. So the number 2 problem we identify with Stratusphere UX is remote display protocol, right? We can see a lot of things inside the remote display protocol, and we can actually see all of this in the remote display protocol with only the agent installed on the virtual desktop, right? So we do monitor multiple remote display protocols, HDX being the one we're talking about right now because we're talking about Citrix. But from here, we can see a lot of things like, how long your session was, the amount of the percentage of the session that was disconnected or connected, or if they were idle majority of the time, right? So if you're finding your folks with a lot of idle, we can ask the question, are they actually working? A lot of managers, when they shifted from work from anywhere or work from home last year, they didn't have the ability to, be in the office with their employees to understand if they're actually working. So they kind of freaked out on anyone to wrangle in, how do I know that this particular user is actually working from home? So with Stratusphere, we have the ability to see, are they idle? Are they active? Their connection percentage or their disconnected percentage? And you can kind of just break it down on that with a summation of, are they actually working if they're just idle all the time, right? In addition to that, are we listening to a podcast? Are we listening to something like that? So we can actually see the amount of audio data that's sent over that remote display protocol as well to the client. So if you have a lot of this, are we listening to the radio or something like that? And also we can see the traditional cases of latency and packet loss. So if you're having a lot of packet loss and you're having a lot of latency, you may be sitting at a coffee shop or something like that that's causing us to have the problems here. So we come back to our demo and we go over to the remote display tab here. It's by default, everything is in here populated of what we're kind of interested in, right? We can see, our session connected percentage, our disconnected percentage. So this particular person is actually disconnected for the majority of their time they've been on this virtual desktop. And then you can actually come over here and you can see sort by the sum audio IO, and you can see if a lot of people are just watching a lot of videos or listening to a lot of podcasts or radio or those types of things in their world, right? And then in addition to that, come here and sort by latency as you deem fit as well. So this particular person does have a very large significant amount of latency. So he may not necessarily have the best experience in their world. Okay. So the top problem we're finding now is VoIP, right? Not just VoIP for Teams, but VoIP for, Skype, WebEx, Jabber, Zoom. With VoIP, it's all about jitter. If you have a lot of jitter, you have a very bad experience when you're doing meetings and those types of things that we're doing now, right? So from a Stratusphere perspective, I can actually drill down on a per process basis, and I can load something up like Teams and I can see how much jitter we're actually truly seeing there. But this, once again, as we talked about, you can change the process to be WebEx or Zoom or those types of things as well to narrow down what exactly went on and why they're reporting such a bad experience with their online meetings. In conjunction with that, we have a problem 1A with problem 1, right? We wanted to talk about Office 365 connectivity and the types of latency and those types of things that can happen that causes issues with performance for our main productivity suite of Office. So we can actually monitor SharePoint, Outlook, OneDrive with latency at a glance. So from there, we actually have a dashboard that is created and published out into our community site that can give you at a glance, how much latency am I having to Teams? How much latency am I having to Outlook and OneDrive? This will just give you an overall health of your connectivity from your environment to these various places, just so you know, is, you know, that are we actually truly having an issue, or is Microsoft having an issue, or any of those types of things like that, right? Also, from there as well, we can actually come in here and you can see the latency and the jitter per application. So you can actually just change this process name from Teams to Outlook to all those things and pull up the latency from there. So to sum it up, actually that's not top 5, sorry, it should be top 6. Change that real quick, there we go. So our top 6 problems that we identify, the first problem is VoIP, jitter, and Office 365, right? So it's the latency and the jitter to those various things. So if folks are reporting a lot of issues in performance when they're on their meetings, or connectivity to Teams in general, just for their, you know, collaboration experience, that's something we can clearly define and see the latency and the jitter for those processes. The second one is remote display. The ability to see, you know, are we connected, disconnected, how much latency, and how much things like audio, I/O we're sending to those channels, right? The third one is the last mile productivity, being able to see your Wi-Fi connectivity out and how far you are away from your access point, and are you on the 5 gig band or the 2.4 gig band, right? The number 4 item was GPUs and hardware acceleration, right? Talking about those GDI objects, having the more than 100 GDI objects in a day and needing to possibly reformulate if we actually want to have a GPU in our virtual desktops. The number 5 item was the last boot time, being able to analyze the last boot time to improve user experience and security, right? Having that uptime of, you know, 30, 40 days or whatever it may be, means that we haven't rebooted at that time to actually install patches. And the last one is long user login. Actually, I think I missed something on the long user login. Let me go back to that real quick. We didn't actually show the logon breakdown. So give me 2 seconds here and I'll show that. Sorry to jump around, but yes. So I'm going to switch this to a longer time frame so we have more data in here. So yes. So I'm going to click on this particular person had a 52-second login. So we're going to look at why his login took that long. All right. So in terms of logon duration, every one of our tables here does have a graph, and you know, from the logon duration, the logon process, you typically want this line to be as flat as possible in this graph. But if you're not into looking at graphs because you want to see more real estate for the actual data, we can just collapse the graph just by clicking the icon here. But if you look here, it's a line by line item on what exactly happened and occurred on the login. So we have our login timeline starting from 0 seconds to however long to log in. There's 2 pages of login events that occurred on this particular user. And then we have the per step duration. So if we look in here, we can see how long every individual item took to load and process, and when they showed up, and how long it took before they showed up on the login timeline. So if we are applying a lot of group policies, you'll actually see all your group policy GUIDs show up here, and then you also see any of the ones that are filtered here, right, as well. So if you had any group policies that were broken or scripts that were broken or those types of things, they would traditionally show up as pink in here. And you know, that allows us to focus in our attention on why the login tokens took so long at those specific areas, because those were clearly something was occurring there to point shine the spotlight onto those distinct places. So you can come down here and you can scroll through as many pages as you would like. But in addition to that, we actually, if you scroll over to the right here, we can see how many cores were allocated to our machine, and we can see, you know, what percentage of the CPU was used on each of these individual steps, right? It's important because if you are starving the machine of a lot of resources, you'll see this thing capped out at 100% a lot of time, and it could add to the amount of time it takes to process these individual items for the login. All right, that was tying back to number 6. Sorry, just to skip around. But all right, so out on our community site, which will be linked inside of the presentation, we have methodology cheat sheets. So we have one for Citrix out there, and it's a full breakdown of what to look for and the amount of, you know, GEI objects, latency, those types of things for Citrix-based sessions. Also out on the community site are dashboards. So this includes the Office 365 latency health dashboard that was actually written by a coworker of mine. So we can pop over and look at that real quick. And there's all kinds of information out here in the community site, not just relegated to Stratosphere, but for our other products. But in here, you know, we can, if it wants to load, we pop over to the dashboard section. If you want to design your own dashboard to see any of the data that we collect, because we do collect thousands of metrics, there's actually a methodology out here, including you know, a generic starting point of what this dashboard should look like, and kind of make that happen for yourself. Yeah, lots and lots of information. Feel free to join the community, contribute to the community, ask questions in the community, and yeah, that's how we build a community, right? Any questions?
Yes, there are a few. First one, is there an agent for Chromebooks available?
There is not an agent for Chromebooks at this time.
Okay, maybe that's something to take away then.
Yeah.
I'll
ask that question to see if they're deving something for that. Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. About pricing, do you price this per seat, or is it enterprise-wide, or how is it?
It's priced per user. So there's 2 methods on how this is licensed. It's licensed as either a per named user or a per concurrent user, but everything is user-based. So if I am interested in monitoring the endpoint and the virtual desktop session in Citrix for my user, it's one license, because it's going to be this particular user logged into those devices at the same time, right?
Okay. Have you seen, you just put out that you're collecting a lot of metrics. Do you see something like a good VM size or good hardware size or good general fits that works with Teams, Zoom calls and stuff like that? So can you I don't know if it makes sense.
We have reports that we can run. So if you're interested in running some sort of assessment to determine, you know, how much resources I need when I make this user a virtual desktop user, from converting from a physical desktop, there are reports we can run inside of the Stratosphere appliance that actually gives you sizing that you would need for that, right? In terms of recommending the amount of cores and the amount of RAM you need for folks to allow them to have the bandwidth to do conference calls like Zoom or Teams or WebEx or whatever it may be, it depends on your environment, right? But, you know, just asking from previous experience, a good starting point is, you know, a couple of cores, 8 gigs of RAM, and then, you know, it's never one size fits all. So some users may be a truly hard hitter power user, and they may be, at the end of the day, 4 cores, 12 gigs of RAM or 16 gigs of RAM, right? It just depends on your environment and what other applications you use on top of your normal collaboration tools that you have out there.
Yeah. What does the footprint usually look like if you're managing 12,000 VDIs and 4,000 clients?
Yeah, when you are managing it like that and looking at our footprint for our appliances, there's actually a sizer out there on our website. It's if you just Google Liquidware sizer, but when you plug it in like that for that many users and that many devices, you're going to be more than one appliance, right? So you'll have our core appliance, which is our hub appliance. Then you'll have a couple of collector appliances, and those appliances would be the ones that actually take the payload from those endpoints and those virtual desktops. And then you'll have a database appliance as well, so that we actually decouple everything from the hub appliance so that we can have the ability to run in those distinct reports and have that historical trending.
Okay. Is there an option to monitor application hosted sessions coming from a Netscale appliance?
Yeah, you're going to put the agent on your Citrix servers, right? And we'll just get the payload from anything that's running on your Citrix server. So it's going to be user X ran Outlook server 1. This is how much resources that were used. This is how much GDI was generated, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And one question coming back to the pricing stuff, is it concurrent user based or is it named user based?
There's both options available.
Okay, that's perfect. One of the other things I noticed on one of the slides, there's something called a UX score.
Yes.
What's that about?
UX score is, out of the box, we have a user experience score that we generate with values we have in there, right? Traditionally, that UX score, you would tune it to your environment. And in addition to that, with later releases of Stratusphere that are going to happen, potentially this year, you can actually add more. There's actually more metrics within that UX score. But by default, there is a generic UX score that's generated there that talks about, CPU utilization, RAM utilization, and those types of things. And you would kind of tune that to your environment.
Perfect, thank you. Another question that pops up is there a way to check what program is taking up the CPU resources like CPU spikes?
Yeah, let's go back to that real quick. Let me pop over to that. So if I have folks, let me switch out of this view so we're not looking at Wi-Fi data. Or even better, we'll just search by user. So you had a particular user that called in and says things are running slow. So like this particular user, they're using 80% of their memory. So if I come in here and I pop out that application inspector by clicking on the node, right, I can actually come over here for like CPU as well, or CPU queuing, and I can see what's consuming the CPU and pop out those inspectors, right? For this particular user, I can see they're running the Brave browser and it's consuming about 5.5 gigs of their memory, right? And I can also see in conjunction all the other processes they're running at the same time. And then you can make the determination, I see this particular machine name that they were on. I can add that into the basis as well. Right. And then I can say, this particular user was generating this much RAM usage based on one application out of here. Do I need to resize that virtual desktop or that pool to accommodate more memory, right? So I just added that machine as a basis in here. So if I find that same user, they were on this machine name right here. And then, you may need more RAM assigned there to allow them to have more room to breathe for more applications. And then, the same thing with CPU utilization. We can just pop out the CPU utilization for this particular user that was using 62.6% of their CPU.
Okay, one other question, is there an inherent multi-tenancy to the product for MSPs out there?
Inherent multi-tenancy, you can, well, for MSPs, what you can do is we can create machine groupings if you're going to provide this as an MSP service, right? So like a managed services, just create machine groupings and then aggregate your client machines into those groupings for the individual organizations so that you can run reports against, customer X virtual desktop, customer X physical desktop, and those types of things.
Okay, another question. Since there's a collector and a hub, what's the delay between the two? Because if you can trying to find an issue in real time, if there's a delay, that can make it tricky.
With the collector, hub, and database appliance together, they're traditionally in the same data center, so there's not really too much delay that exists there. In terms of how we collect data and run intervals and payloads, is we sample the machine once every 5 minutes by default. You can actually toggle the number if you feel inclined to, and then the payload gets sent once an hour to the hub appliance to see the issues, right? To report that data. You can actually toggle any of those if you don't want 1 hour and you want 10 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever it may be. Yes, that you'll have a lot more payloads that get sent across your network and into your environment, which will actually cause the database size to grow larger. But it is possible to make it as quick as you would choose to in like a diagnosis kind of environment.
And can you take action on a VM that's, let's say, misbehaving or needs reboot or something like that?
Not from Stratusphere. No, we can't take action. We can shine the light on it, but we cannot take action. There is a future product that will have the ability to be able to take action against those machines, but that's a completely separate product at the moment.
Okay. I think that wraps about up the questions that are out there.
Okay. Cool. So there will be a bunch of links inside the PowerPoint that will be provided as well along with the recording. But if there are no other questions, I think we're good here. Thank you.
All right, I have one last slide, and it's the slide that everybody likes because it has to do with the giveaway. Let me get that one up there. Yes, let's see if GoToWebinar is going to show it. See, that's what happens. There we go. It's showing. All right, and I'll come back to the screen. Hi. All right, thank you so much, guys. Thanks for all that. There was a lot of good questions out there too. And those of you who wanted more information, I'll make sure that Johnny gets a copy of the Q&A afterwards and he can reach back out to you. Those of you who may have opted in for a chance to win the Amazon Echo Show from Liquidware, I am going to randomly choose the winner as soon as this webinar is over when I get the full registration list and give everybody a fair shot. So keep an eye on your inbox from an email from me or watch Twitter to see who won. So we'll be announcing that as soon as I get that confirmed. And like we said at the top of the hour, we'll be sending out a link to the recording, and that'll also include a link to the slide deck with all the links and resources in there too. All right. Thanks, Johnny. Thanks, Bart.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hope all of you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you at another CUGC event again soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.